Ireland. We flew through the night, and I must tell you that when the sun rose on the next day, I was one excited passenger. In fact, when I began to see the morning sun peek through the windows of the plane, I pulled up the shade beside my seat to see the sun dancing on the top of the clouds. And the flight attendant came along, wanting to be helpful to all of my traveling companions, and asked me to put the shade back down so everyone could continue to sleep. But I was now on approach to something in the West. We flew across the British Isles, and we made our approach to Dublin, Ireland, the Emerald Isle, where everything is green, and the morning sun lit up the green, and it was like a welcoming committee to me. I dispatched a quick text message back home, and 45 minutes or so later, we were airborne again, headed across the Atlantic. Dublin to Dulles is one of the shortest ways to make that transatlantic trek. And some time later, we landed at Dulles. When we landed at Dulles, I was one excited guy to be on U.S. soil. I walked into customs as if I owned the United States of America. I walked into that place and I thought, I don't care who the president is. I don't care who the Speaker of the House is. I don't care who the Senate Majority Leader is. Still the greatest country on the face of the earth, and nothing else comes close. I started processing, and the gentleman looked at everything and he said, "Did you change your flight?" I said, "Yes, I did." I said, "I was originally booked to fly out, but we had to postpone it by 10 days because I tested positive." He said, "Well, sir, you're not on the manifest and I cannot clear you." And so he sent me to a secondary clearing area. They let me out a secure exit and said, "Follow the red line." It's almost like being in prison. I followed the line down and waited for them to call me. After a few moments, a delightful young Hispanic woman that worked for Customs and Border Patrol called me up, and she asked me a couple of questions and I answered them, and she said, "Sir, you're free to go out that door right there." And I went for the door, and when I got to the door, they said, "Do you have anything to claim?" I said, "I have a bag." And he said, "Well, you're going to have to walk back up to baggage claim and retrieve your bag." I thought this should be simple. As long as this process is taken, my bag should be sitting there waiting on me at baggage claim. I went, and it was not there. It was a big flight, lots of people, 2 big turnstiles. I walked around both of them over and over and over and over again, and I began to suspicion the inevitable, that I made that plane in August, but my bag did not. I finally talked to one of the baggage attendants for the airline, and they did exactly what I had done. They walked through, they looked at every bag, they asked me questions about my bag, couldn't find my bag. They looked at a few secure places that I did not have access to. The bag was not to be found. And the gentleman said, "You stay right here, and I'll be back to you, and we'll fill out some paperwork about your bag." I stood there for about a half hour. Finally, he returned. It took about 5 minutes to complete the paperwork on my bag, but now I'd been on the ground for an extended period of time. And finally, I walked out the double doors at Dulles. I found the first exterior exit and was delighted to see my van parked just a matter of feet directly in front of me. You may have already heard my wife talk about how that I missed the romantic moment, that I missed the moment to reach out and hug her and pull her up tight and give her a big wet kiss. But I have been traveling for 30-something hours, and all I wanted was away from that airport and away back to my home. So I opened the van door and I just fell into the van. Later that day, I finally arrived back at home. It was about 6 o'clock in the evening Eastern time when I arrived at home, which would have made it about midnight Zimbabwe time. I had left my lodge just after 10 a.m. on Sunday morning. And by Zimbabwe reckoning, it was now almost midnight on Monday. But I was thankful to be home. God takes care of His people. I'm reminded of the story of a preacher who met the illustrious Spurgeon at the train station. And as they talked, the preacher said to Spurgeon, "I'm traveling in coach and saving God's money." And Spurgeon looked at him and said, "I'm traveling first class and saving God's man." Well, God's good, and God allows us to save money, and He saves the man. He saves the messenger. He takes care of His preachers. In the right hand of the Lord Jesus Christ are held the 7 stars of His churches. He holds them in the hand of provision, protection, and prosperity. And we are forever comforted by the care that our God gives to us. He sees us home. Well, thank you so much for joining us for these COVID Chronicles and retelling of God's great grace in our life in these days.